Let's do it. So, welcome to the show. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Joining me is a great guest. I've had him on the show a few times. Stephen Bassett. Stephen Bassett is executive director of the Paradigm Research Group, PRG, founded in 1996 to end the government-imposed embargo on the truth behind the extraterrestrial-related phenomena. Stephen, welcome to the show, my man. Thank you for joining me.
It is a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So we have a report that is supposed to be coming up. The New York Times has basically said, well, it's not going to confirm aliens, but it's not going to disallow it. The New York Times also makes a point of saying the military is saying that it's not their technology, it's not their secret advanced tech. Now, you can poo-poo this because I don't believe for a moment that they would ever say, hey, 10% of this is our own technology that we're interacting with. So I don't buy that part. So that's fair. But we're still stuck with the same reality. Project Blue Book took a very explicit interest in saying it wasn't UFOs and to even kill the idea or conversation around the UFO issue. This
Yeah.
report is not going to do that. This report is doing something else. And so the New York Times coming out saying, okay, it's not aliens. Or at the very least, we don't know if it's aliens, but we know it's not us. All right, then you're stuck with Russia and China, and you're stuck with aliens. And you're stuck with, in a weird way, that it would mean that Russia and China, despite the fact that we increased our military budget by more than what Russia pays for its military. Just
hmm
put that in perspective. And even in the context of China, we spend what, 3, 4, 5 times more than what China spends for its military. So despite these countries spending dramatically less in regards to weapons tech, we would have had to be leapfrogged in a way where gravity is being manipulated, where our capabilities of stopping them from entering our airspace and sensitive military areas, all of that stuff, I mean, that in and of itself is outrageous. Like both scenarios are outrageous. And the latter, the one with China and Russia, seems more unlikely in an odd way. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, what did you think of the New York Times article on this?
I thought a great deal. Let's hang on a second. Eventually, I'm going to have to pull these articles up. But look, in order to make sense of this, I have the luxury of having spent the last 25 years trying to deal with this issue from a political perspective. I'm sure many of your listeners have been paying attention, but not to the degree that I have. So let me help. In order to understand what's going on now, you have to keep a couple of things in mind. One of those is that the US government has known about the ET presence for 74 years, meaning those in the government that need to know this know it. And hang on a second, I've got an issue here I need to fix.
No,
Uh,
you're fine. You're fine. I am
okay,
sending you the link now, just so you'll have it um, for your own edification.
you mean a link for when
Oh,
this
for
goes up?
this, yeah, for the video, because the video is live. It's live currently, actually,
Oh, so
and
you're live on YouTube.
yeah, we're live.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you told me that.
Oh, my
Okay, so
bad. I thought you knew. I thought you knew. I that's what when I sent the email, it was like not for the radio show, just for the YouTube channel.
I'm having so much trouble keeping up with all the damn developments that are going on with this tech. It's tough.
No,
Uh,
no, no. I understand.
I've got my names back where I want it. Look, um, okay. First and foremost, the United States government has known about the ET presence for 75 years, maybe even sooner. Now, by that I mean that those in the government that need to deal with this issue know about it, going all the way back to 1947, latest. And so, well, if the government has known all these years, that why all this dancing around and everything else? I'll explain. Second thing is the government has been embargoing this issue as a national security policy for that period. And that embargo is still in effect. In other words, the policy is that we will not confirm the extraterrestrial presence to the American people. So you have to get those fixed in your head, okay, as you read this and read that, and what have you. Okay, so what's happened uh, over the years, the embargo has been under assault, going all the way back to Donald Keogh and the days of Nightcap and James McDonald. And Ruppelt, who really wanted to have this thing handled openly and appropriately. And the assault on the truth embargo in the last 10 years particularly has really increased. And then when the To the Stars Academy went public and launched their organization in October of 2017, the assault on the truth embargo escalated. And so we are in the last days and months of this policy. But it's not like the government's going to change the policy and go, here. No.
Here's the craft. Kick the tires.
Because the government has been essentially withholding this truth and embargoing this truth for 3/4 of a century. And as the time has gone by, more and more people, not only in the United States, but in other countries, have figured out it's a lie. It's a lie. Is it a crime? I don't think so. But is it a lie? Absolutely. And that they have been containing this, meaning whatever we ought to know about this, whatever promise this new reality holds for us, that's not our concern, according to the government. A lot of people are very unhappy about that. And the government's been criticized significantly. So the idea that you'll just end it and go, hi, they're here. Sorry we didn't tell you sooner, right? Ain't going to happen. This is a massive event of historic proportions, which is going to affect everything, including the careers of politicians and the legacies of military people and generals. Every agency is affected. So the idea that you're just going to end it, no. What you have to do, what they want to do, ideally, and it's a little self-serving, but I'm not upset about that, is the United States government and our allies will follow suit very quickly. They're following our lead. Needs to extricate itself out from under the lie. Think about maybe when you were younger and you did something really, really bad. I mean, it was bad. And you knew your parents were going to have to know about this. Now, it wasn't like you were going to be able to take this to your grave. It's not going to happen.
Well, wait, this is a little bit different than that, though. I mean, because as a kid, and you do something, like, for example, when I think it was like 6 years old, I stole a Reese's peanut butter cup out of your totem. My mom was like, take that back. don't do that. Take that back and tell the person you're sorry. And I never, you never did it again. But wait a minute. But the difference is, that's morally wrong, as opposed to this, which they might have taken the aspect or the perspective of, okay, for national security reasons and for unforeseen, meaning if we can't foresee what society is going to be when this is disclosed, then we're not going to disclose it. It could have just been that, which is different than morally reprehensible, if that makes sense.
You're overthinking it. I'm just trying to make a simple analogy, okay? In other words, for whatever reason you're lying, the point is that let's take the kid, right, lies, did really bad, and knows that parents are going to know about it. Now, a smart kid will sit down and go, okay, look, I'm going to have to tell them the truth. How can I go about it in a way that will make it look not as bad, or they won't be as mad at me as they might, right? And so you come up with some approach to it, right? And this is a simple way of simply saying that I understand why the government wants to get out from under this embargo, which was maintained by decades and decades of lying. But lying for national security reasons is standard policy. Everybody knows that. Nobody objects when we come to national security. And so what we're seeing is that extrication process. And so, and I think that it wasn't supposed to last this long. I believe it was supposed to be relatively compacted to a period running from roughly the end of 2016, maybe November, December, to the spring of 2017. And boom, we're out. So it's about I think it was intended to be a 6-7 month process. That was the hope. But things happened. Events took place. The election did not go the way I think that it was anticipated. And then a pandemic showed up. And so this thing has been strung out for 4 years. Now, the problem with that is that a lot of the principles involved in this process, they were out and they were going to get questions and they were going to be pursued by podcasters and bloggers and reporters and everybody else. And they're having to speak to what's going on, but they are limited in what they can say. Everybody's limited in what they can say, which brings me to a third thing people need to understand. Whether it's James Woolsey or John Brennan or Norquist, whether it's any of these reports that are coming from the Pentagon or anything else, they are not yet in a position to tell you what they know. And so if some high-level former security person says, I'm pretty impressed by those clips, those gun camera footages, they don't seem to be explainable, okay? And I don't think that the U.S. has that technology. Is that what they really know? No. That's what they can say. In fact, throughout the entire truth embargo, you can describe the whole interaction between the public and the government or the politicians or anybody else. What you have is a whole lot of people telling you or saying what they can say, not what they know. And that's awkward. It's hard to govern that way. It's hard to run a corporation that way. But national security, that's how things go.
Why do you think they're doing this now? I'm just curious.
Now?
Yeah, why now? Why do you think they're pulling? I mean, because it does seem like there's an effort for it. I mean, the Pentagon at any point could have said those videos are bogus.
Oh, yeah,
at any point, and never did it. So, like, why is the input? Why is there such a push to get this stuff out now? From your standpoint, I know there's no way for you to know that it's a flat fact. But
it is not a push. It is a pull. All right. In other words,
I see.
Yeah. Look, imagine we have a dam, and for 75 years the reservoir behind it has been filling with water, and finally there's so much water in that dam it starts to make little cracks in it, and it's leaking. Right. And then the leaks get a little bit better and a little wider and so forth. And then at some point, we know what happens. One of those cracks gets a little too big, opens up, boom, the entire reservoir empties into the riverbed, heads downstream.
So you don't think the Pentagon was trying to release anything? You think that it basically was ripped out of it? Basically the information.
Not quite ripped.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say is this: that the effort to end the truth embargo was raised to another level when the To the Stars Academy was formed in October of 2017, or when it announced itself. It was organized prior to that, way prior to that, organized back in, I think, probably 2015, 16, but no later than spring of 2016 or the summer. So when that happened, there was a significant sea change in the pressure on the truth embargo. Why? Because what was immediately obvious was that when you look at the bios of the 10 people that were listed on that website, To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science website, you instantly saw that all of these people's career was in the national security arena, in the military intelligence complex. Full careers, substantial accomplishments, CIA, DIA, DOD, the skunk works at Lockheed, that would be a civilian corporate thing, but again, classified corporate defense contracting. And you have to say, why are these people together as part of an organization that says on its website it's going to be addressing the UAP issue in various ways? Research, interesting technologies, plus books and education stuff. Nice little enterprise. And they're going to raise some money, which they did, about $2.5 million. But why would they do that? These people, when you have careers like the people on that initial team in the government, when you leave, you can get jobs anywhere, paying very well. You can do contract work with the government. You certainly do not have to belong to an organization that is going to challenge the truth embargo, which is what it was doing.
Your point is this is being choreographed.
It is. It's choreographed in this way. As best as I can tell, since the To the Stars Academy people are not able to, I think they might like to, but they're not able to give us the origin story for this organization. They want you to think, and it's kind of convenient, they want you to think that like they had no idea about doing this and Tom DeLonge showed up and convinced them to do this. So look, I get why they're saying it that way, but the chances of that being the case are tiny. No. So what I realized virtually immediately was that a significant group within the military intelligence complex working privately together as individuals, not as an official act of the military intelligence complex or any agency, decided that they wanted to take action to help end this truth embargo. They had their reasons. And there was enough of these people, and they had enough, how would you say, clout, that they were able to protect this group when it came out. Because if they didn't, if the To the Stars Academy did not have backup in the Department of Defense, possibly even the CIA, that thing would have been gone in no time. It would have just found a reason to disappear. But they have backup inside the MIC. And so essentially what I realized is that after all these years and all the efforts by nobodies like me and others with no money, but still hammering away, trying to get hearings, not going anywhere, now the disclosure movement was being led by the military intelligence complex.
That freaks me out.
They come out and that website, okay, fine, haven't done anything. And so the real test of where this is going is what are they going to do first?
Right.
And what they did, aside from starting to put together a program that would eventually go on History Channel, what they did was deliver blockbuster news stories to the New York Times, handed it right to them, and said, vet this, and if it's true, cover it, which is what the New York Times did in a big way. All right. And so when those two articles hit in December of 2017, let me be clear, nothing like those articles had ever been in media, in American media, and certainly not in a time where the media is global and articles like that go completely around the world, including the gun camera footage. And so at that point, I realized that they are serious. They are going to be driving this issue. And why would they do that? Just because they're going to form an organization and make a whole bunch of money by milking the UAP issue? No, because they wanted to end this truth embargo. Okay, so now the pressure on the embargo just escalates. Right. And so everybody in the military intelligence complex, as well as the politicians in this town, the ones that weren't out doing stupid stuff, but actually paying attention, would have known the moment those articles hit that the truth embargo's days were numbered, and they're going to have to make a decision how they're going to deal with that. And that includes the DOD, Navy, Army, Air Force, CIA, every aspect of government, ultimately the Congress and the White House. How are we going to deal with what appears to be now a fait accompli? And that's what's been going on now for 3.5 years. And you may say, well, wait a minute, why didn't it just get done? Right? They finally announced, why didn't they get done? And we wouldn't even be having this chat now. Because there were other things happening that were also pretty significant. And one of those was the fact that the United States entered in 2017 the most problematic, chaotic period in this country politically since the Civil War.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a real big deal. And so they for whatever reason, they could not wait. They launched this project into that political hurricane, I think with the idea, look, we need to get going and we'll kind of just see how things go and assess the situation. And maybe things will get to a point where we can take it further. But as we know, the political hurricane in this country just got worse and worse and worse.
It didn't go anywhere. Basically, Trump sucked all the air out the room.
It might have started settling down.
Well, between COVID, between Trump,
pandemic,
but at this point, all of that stuff is gone. And so it's like, well, it seems that we have a political climate right now where the UFO thing is the issue, if that makes sense. Like, it's one of the issues that have taken one of prominence. I mean, 60 Minutes, Morning Joe, you had the New York Times, you had the Washington Post, you had CNN. Basically, every media outlet has been covering all of the leaks that has been coming from the UAP task force.
But why didn't that happen 3 years ago, 2 years ago? Because of these things I mentioned.
Right.
The pandemic and the political situation. So the political situation changes with the election, obviously, and things start to get settled down a bit, but then you've got the pandemic. And that's very, very uncertain because how fast is the vaccination is going to roll out? Where is this disease going? And so as that became a little more clear, things started to escalate very, very fast. All right. And I think that this was because of certain actions by the TTS people, the principal ones being Mellon and Elizondo, without question. And also the citizens research activist movement has never stopped. I mean, we've been addressing this issue in every way possible, getting media and what have you, podcasts forming by the scores. So the issue is more in play than ever. So we were helping, but overall, the key players were the ones that were getting the attention of the major media, and that would be Elizondo and Mellon. All right, so we're moving forward now. And so what's going to happen? Eventually, this thing is going to start catching fire. All right. And it started catching fire. Let's see. When was the key turning point?
It was maybe, I mean, it depends. There seemed to be several. The release of the videos always had this kind of spasm of, oh my God, every time something like 60 Minutes, especially when 60 Minutes ran the UFO piece with Elizondo, with Fravor, I think they had Ryan Graves, and Dietrich, I believe her name is. That was mind-blowing. Because basically, Elizondo, who ran the project, is telling the American public, we have something in our air that does not have a flight surfaces that we typically have, does not accord itself to our avionics, that has a capacity to fly in the water and in the air and potentially. That's mind-blowing, right? And this is the guy that basically studied it and is seeing the classified documents and everything else. I've never seen anything like that.
Well, we don't know what he's seen. We don't know if Lou Elizondo had access to any of the USAPs related to this issue, but he engaged the issue because a non-USAP, not an unacknowledged special access program, was put in play by Senator Reid. The Pentagon could not turn Reid down, and they set up this ATIP program. But was ATIP the center of the research of this issue? Of course not.
Right.
The government's been researching this phenomenon for 75 years. This was just something they had to do. But it brought Lou into the picture and helped to lead to where we're going. But when Lou Elizondo gets in front of a camera and tells you, look, this clearly, this is not technology we have. But does he say it's extraterrestrial? No. Does he know it's extraterrestrial? You better believe he knows. All right. But he can't say that. Why? Because it would disrupt the process underway. So that is what has been so confusing to people. There's a lot of people out there, well, look, if you know this and you know that, then clearly it's ET. Why don't you say it? He doesn't. Oh, why not? And then why is everybody being careful?
Well, to be fair, he's addressed that, by the way. He says, I'm trying not to go to jail. That's basically what he said. I'm trying not to go to jail or trying not to get shot. One of those. I mean, but if he came on and said these are aliens, they would put Lou in a jail.
No, they would not.
You don't think so?
Not. Absolutely not.
You think that?
No.
I don't know, Stephen. I mean, because why don't you think they would lock him up for that? Because that would be a radical breach of any national disclosure agreement that he signed.
Look, you sign non-disclosure agreements, security agreements, with respect to your activities in government and what you're dealing with and what have you. Does that mean you can't give an opinion that, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's extraterrestrial?
Well, he said that. Well, he has said that. When he was on CNN, he was talking to Aaron Burnett. And Aaron Burnett, he said, basically, I need to find the video, but basically what he said was, she says, do you think they're aliens or do you think they're not from here? And he says, I'm not speaking for the government of the United States, but based on my scientific observation, yes.
I have checked all the videos. I don't recall that. I'll review it.
I am going to find that video and send you that video.
Dozens and dozens of interviews. And he just doesn't say that. That might have been a little slip. Okay, it might have been a little slip, but nobody in that group is able to say extraterrestrial, or at least they have to somehow dodge it any way they can. Now, you might say, well, why? Why would that be the case? Because one, the principal reason is that they are doing this with the protection of people inside the military intelligence complex that are giving them cover. If they get outside the lines, if they go too far, if they press this too much, like using the words extraterrestrial, expressing their opinions about that forcefully, he might have gone there once. then it causes problems for them because there are plenty of people still inside the military intelligence complex that do not want disclosure to happen ever. They would be happy to see this game go on until they die and their kids die. That's just where they're at. Okay. And so they have the ability to reach out and cause problems. So they're having to stay between the lines. Now, what is the reason that you would do that, though? I mean, indefinitely? I mean, you're going to have to do that indefinitely until what? Something happens? I don't think so.
So right here. So here it is. So CNN, Aaron Burnett. My personal belief is that it's a compelling evidence that we may not be alone. Elizondo said in an interview on CNN's Aaron Burnett out front.
That's not saying it's aliens. That's saying it may be aliens.
Yeah, he's putting the caveats in to ensure he's safe. Yeah.
No, not the same thing. And that's the absolute furthest he's ever gone.
Yeah.
And that was one time. And Mellon has never even come close to that. So again, I'm trying to answer the key question here. Why do they still have to dance around what millions of people know without question, with certainty, is true? We have an ET present.
What if, for the people who say it's not an ET, like the New York Times wrote this article, America, where is it? U.S. finds no evidence of alien technology and flying objects, but can't rule it out either. Now, the New York Times had to revise that headline because the headline was repudiated basically by like second paragraph in the article. For people who say, well, that article says it's not aliens, Stephen Bassett. So
that's not what the article says.
Right. So for people who think it's swamp gas, for people who think it's all parallax and optical illusions, even when there's multiple people watching it, how do you respond to those people when they say, hey, there's no evidence of aliens here, I mean, etc.? What's your response?
I don't respond. People that are still thinking that way, I wish them well. History has already passed them by, and hopefully they'll catch up at some point. But that's not what the article said. But again, I'm trying to get the key point across here. The most important thing you're going to hear from me today is that the reason everybody is sort of playing by a set of rules on this, even as the press coverage grows and grows and grows, and the public's anticipation grows and so forth, expecting major things to happen, is because there is a way this needs to be done.
Right.
And what I mean, the what to be done, the end of the truth embargo is a complicated game of four-dimensional chess. And it's not easy because it's not like you can pull everybody together in a room and go through a list of strategic moves. And so, no, you have most of the people in this town have been figuring out what's going on and sort of getting involved as it happens, as it unfolds. What can I say? It's complicated. So why is this? Why is this? The fact is this, there's a way to get out of this truth embargo, which will cause a lot of disruption, a lot of damage, a lot of upset, and a lot of pain.
Explain. Explain that part for a moment. Why? Why would removing the truth embargo cause upset, pain, upheaval, etc.? And this is going to get kind of transition into the other part of the conversation I wanted to get into. Meaning, what does it mean in politically? Like, what happens when this comes out? And why do you believe that an aspect of it could be dark and another aspect could be better? I'm curious on your point of view on this.
I'm not referring to the content so much. I'm referring to how you do it. Again, let me use a simple analogy. You lie to your mother and father about something really kind of important. And then they finally sort of figure it out and you have to tell them the truth. And you say, look, Mom, Dad, yeah, I lied to you. So what? Screw you. Okay? All right? Screw you.
You mean for them? I see what you mean. You don't mean like for the public. You mean just for the individuals that were involved in keeping that secret.
So what I'm saying is it's not the way you go about it is very important. There's ways to go about this will be very destructive, and there's ways to do it that will be positive. And so what's being put together is the most positive way. I refer to the whole damn thing as a public relations driven extrication project. Okay? All right. So what is the positive way to do this? All right. Here is how I believe it needs to be done and how I think it will be done. All right. You have to create a situation where members, the chairman of key committees in the Congress will agree to hold the real deal hearings on the UAP phenomena. All right. That's number one. We've tried to get those hearings since we tried to get the real hearings since ever, all the way back to Keogh in 1950s. Couldn't get them. We got 2 one-day show things of no consequence at all in 66 and 68. Since then, there have been many more attempts. Couldn't get them. The reason is simple. Such hearings would inevitably end the truth embargo. All right, so that's the first thing. Secondly, the hearings have got to have the proper, platform,
Yeah.
right? And that would have to be national security. The members of Congress are not going to be putting themselves out, taking the risk, political risk, to do these hearings unless the basis for them is appropriate. And of course, national security is appropriate, and the ET issue clearly has national security implications. So you've got to emphasize that. All right. 3, you've got to get witnesses. You have to have witnesses that can testify. And ideally, they need to be military witnesses, the best kind of witnesses. So you got to get that together. All right. So, and so you do what you have to do to lay the platform for the committees to hold these hearings. And I assure you that going out in front of the press and saying ETs are here is not how you're going to get to those hearings.
Right.
All right.
Right.
And so they have been moving toward that. Now, remember, I believe the original plan, this whole thing was going to take about 6 months. Boom, bada bam, bada boom, we're home free. It didn't work out the way. It stretched out for 4 years. So that's really complicated things. But nevertheless, we're now approaching the end game.
What happens after the end game? That's oh man, you have no idea how fascinating this is to me, because it feels like we get into this kind of radical change in our world almost.
Yeah, well, that's a post-disclosure question. Let's put that on. Right. Well, first, we got to get to the post-disclosure world. Otherwise, those questions are irrelevant. All right. So now, if you've got the platform, everything set up to hold the hearings, then those hearings will be called and the witnesses will testify. Now, what we can expect from that is, I think, common sense. These hearings will be probably the most important hearings that Congress has ever had. Not probably, they will be. They will be watched on television by hundreds of millions of people. Pick a number. It could be a billion. Doesn't matter. They will be literally the biggest show in town for weeks. All right. So what's happening in that context is you've got former members of military services and essentially the DOD testifying under oath in front of committees on the Hill. That's a big win for the military services and a big win for the DOD. The report that was requested by the Senate Intel Committee is another win for the DOD. Why? Because if that report is just reasonable, if it doesn't have to go off the chart. If it just comes in and seems supportive, it will be used as another basis to get these hearings held. And the DOD looks like it's helping, right? So it's another win for the DOD. It's a huge win for Congress. Because what we will see in these hearings, unlike most of the hearings that we tend to turn up, is not a hyper-partisan clown show, but rather the real deal. Because this issue is completely nonpartisan. There is no reason for anybody to do Democratic or Republican Party posturing. They actually, what they'll do is ask good questions of members of the military under oath, and without having to go there. And they will look great in front of a very big audience. And of course, the committee chairs and ranking members will look very good. There's about 7 committees where this is likely to turn up, but the most important is the Senate Intelligence Committee. So the committee members and they look great. Both parties are going to be participating in this, Democrats and Republicans. And so that looks great. The American people will be seeing government doing what it's supposed to do. And they are going to appreciate that mightily. And so they win. The American people are clearly winning because they're finally starting to get the damn information out in a transparent way. And so they win. The rest of the world wins because they're going to be watching too. But you know who the big winner is in this particular process that's underway, which I think is what has to happen and what I think will happen? It is the President of the United States. Uh-oh.
Well, wait.
Wait a minute.
No. Can you hear me? Oh,
hang on a second. I just lost my
your video
signal. Let me see what happened. It could just be because. Let me do this.
There you are. You're back.
It's the President of the United States. All right.
See, here's the thing, and I think I might disagree with you. Well, maybe not. It's very weird. So all of this stuff is so in the black that we're stuck basically going by whatever we're told. And under normal circumstances, these guys are not like, the most honest of actors. And so I don't necessarily know why this issue would also garner that. This issue has been in the black for like 70 years, like you said, truth embargo for 70 years or more.
Well, it's sort of been in the black. I mean, right. It's the ETs fly wherever the hell they want, do whatever they want. So that's not in the black. That's known all over the world.
Well, that part's known, but from the standpoint of what the government knows, from the standpoint of what they have, the information that all of that stuff is basically in the black. And I don't have this belief that they're going to come out and be transparent. I think they're going to tell us.
You're getting ahead of yourself here, right?
Go for it.
In order to get to that information, in order to get any access to the total government involvement in the ET issue, going back to at least 1947, first we have to get the disclosure. Until we get disclosure, we don't get to go there. Yeah. What is disclosure? It's the formal confirmation of just their presence by the head of state, by the president of the United States. That's all it is, right? And that's not exactly black because people see the damn craft flying around. It's just the president saying, yeah, some of that stuff you're seeing is ET. That's disclosure. First, we have to get there. These hearings are designed to get there. And that's why I say that the biggest winner of this process as it's unfolding is the president. Why? Look, Jimmy Carter wanted to go there. They stonewalled him. They told him, forget it, Jimmy. You're not part of this picture. You don't have a right to know this, which upset him greatly. Bill Clinton tried to go there in a time when it was much more possible to do so at the behest of Lawrence Rockefeller. That went on for 3 years. They stonewalled him. They told him, forget it, Bill. You're just the president. You're not that important. And then when he continued to press, the Air Force, which has had the worst track record on this of any entity in the United States by far, and they still haven't taken any action now, which is a mistake on their part. The Air Force under Sheila Whitnall put together a $10-12 million study simply to come up with the mogul balloon explanation. I mean, that's as bad as it was. And so the presidents, it's very hard for them to do it on their own, but they could. A president could at any time have forced this issue right out in the open by basically driving a pile driver right through the Pentagon. Now, what do I mean by that? Look, the presidents have had some problems of late. And the power of the presidency has been encroached on at times. But I assure you, the president is still the president. And so any one of the past presidents, going all the way back to Truman, could have, certainly all the way back as far as you want to go, could at any time have simply gone to the Pentagon and said, I want everything you are doing on this issue. And I want summaries of it all on my desk, and I want it there in like 14 days. And I assure, and the president would have said, look, if you do not give that to me, I'm firing every one of you. You're all out of a job. You're gone. Your history, your career is over. And then I will replace you and ask the replacements the same question. And they will deliver it, or I'll replace them. Any president could have done that. But I assure you that the effect it would have had on our society, on our country, with the president driving a pile driver through the Pentagon in order to get to that information would have been chaos.
Yeah, it would have been dramatic.
So they couldn't.
That would have been extreme.
So
that would have been so extreme.
The process that's underway now, Jamarl, is just the opposite.
Yeah.
By holding the hearings we've wanted so long, they will hand the disclosure event to the president. The president's not forcing them. The president has been handed the opportunity to do it, and this is how it should go down.
What do you think is the effect of the report is going to be in that process? Meaning, I would imagine the report is going to give this kind of leeway for to try to get the hearings in and of itself. But the report that's coming up, because like you said, there's a push and pull associated with the way the information is being disclosed, where there are elements that seem to want to get it out and elements that seem to want to stonewall.
Yeah.
So the report is going to be, I guess, some kind of combination of the two, basically. So what do you think it's going to say? And what do you think it's going to say in the context of trying to get those hearings in order to get the disclosure that you're referring to?
The report is not that important. The report was a strategic political move on the part of Mark Rubio. He saw that what was going down, and he decided to get involved. This was his way to get on the disclosure train. And so by putting that report in, it kind of set the stage, pushed it out. When he first announced this, God, it was like a couple of months before the bill was signed. So we're talking almost 8 months, but he pushed it way out past the election, very safe, and got the Intel committee, which he was chairing and which he might have still been chairing if the election had gone another way. And he got the Intel committee right out in front of this issue. Got a lot of press, all right? But there were other strategic reasons to do it. Because by getting the DOD to at least produce a report relative to this, it would, one, start building significant anticipation and awareness on the public's part. It would also get the media involved. There was a lot of articles about that. But more importantly, it gives the Pentagon a chance to go a little further and show that it's trying to help, right? That we're on the side of the truth here, all right? And so strategically, that's good. But also, whatever information they get will be an additional justification for the committee chairs to take the political risk of saying, okay, we want witnesses in front of us to talk about the national security implications of UAPs. And so that's a good thing. So it's basically win-win. Now, if the Pentagon and ONI had comes up with a completely bogus, nonsensical, standard nonsense like the mogul balloon, well, that would be a mess. But it's way past that, and that's not what's going to happen. We already got a first glimpse of what's going to happen, and what we're told the report's going to contain. Some of the things perfectly fits the scenario. It's not a problem, and so the report is part of the overall process. And what's going to happen is, I believe this, with hundreds of millions of people watching, military witnesses, the best kind of witnesses, testifying under oath in front of these committees. After a week or so of that, the president is then in the comfortable, politically safe position of being able to go to the American people and say, I've been watching all this testimony like you have for the last week, 2 weeks, whatever. And it is very compelling. I have talked with top people at the Pentagon. I've also talked with the congressional leaders. And we have come to the consensus that this testimony indeed confirms there is an extraterrestrial presence, that some of this is, in fact, non-human technology from elsewhere. And that's disclosure.
What happens on day 2?
And now, okay, so that's disclosure. Well,
right, that's disclosure.
What's going to happen next is pretty straightforward. One, the American people are going to want to know what's going on. They want to know as much as they can be told. The press is going to go bananas. You'll see there's going to be a feeding frenzy in the press at the level of Monica Lewinsky's scandal going up as we get closer to the hearings. But when disclosure takes place, that's going to escalate again. So the press are going to be, everybody's hair in the press can be on fire. Okay. But the president has a simple way to proceed. Okay. I am encouraging Congress to continue to hold hearings and start expanding the witnesses that come in as we move into learning more about this. And so what's going to happen very early in the post-disclosure era that we've been trying to get to for 75 years is more hearings. And again, everybody's going to be watching them worldwide, okay? And so you'll have witnesses coming in, starting to testify to more aspects of this phenomena. And so the American people will initially start to learn more about the ET situation in the best possible context. Hearings, witnesses under oath on TV. That's when it's going to happen next. And how long they will go on, I don't know. But there will be obviously people being interviewed. Aside from that, all of the people in the citizen science world and in journalist world, like yourself, like me, like all of my colleagues, are going to get quite a bit of attention. We'll be doing interviews, and you'll just start an information wave will start to move forward after the president's announcement, and all the other heads of state are going to back him up. I assure you, they're all going to come out and say, "Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that's true." I can't imagine any country going out and say, oh, no, 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 no. The president of the United States doesn't know what he's talking about. There's no ETs here. That's not going to happen. And so this information wave will just move forward in time, and the entire world will slowly start to find out, as much as the governments will release with national security aspects being taken into consideration, the reality of the ET presence. And that's what's going to happen. That's the most important thing you need to think about right now in terms of the post-disclosure world. We could discuss all of the potential things that could happen in the post-disclosure world between now and the end of the year. But that's the key thing. How is it going to happen? And then what will happen immediately thereafter? What will be happening in the weeks and months right after disclosure? More hearings, nonpartisan hearings with the Congress. Great job.
I appreciate your point of view on this. I honestly do. And I even appreciate this, the way you're envisioning this unfolding. I have a far darker, I don't think it's going to unfold that smoothly, though. I mean, if you think about it, it took, a 5-month process, ended up taking, 4 or 5 years. And the process is still going on. Hillary Clinton, on the night that she lost the race, estimates were like a 90% chance of her winning that race on the night she lost the race. Things often don't turn out the way that we expect in regards to our expectations. And so it's I think you're going to start getting, the moment that the president says, yes, we're not alone, I think the first night is going to be celebration. I agree with you 1,000%. Everybody's going to be like, what on earth is going on? And they are going to be they are going to just absorb as much content as they could possibly get. And I think therein lies the problem. You have some people right now who believe that the COVID vaccine has a metal chip in it that's basically tracking people around the globe. You have other people who believe that Donald, 30%, 20 million people, that Donald Trump won in a landslide, the race that he lost. And so it's we're going to add aliens to that for something that is in the black. And the American public is stuck with what the information that they get. And when we're looking at from the standpoint of the public's perspective of media and perspective of politicians, they consider these guys untrustworthy, which is the problem. I mean, because what happened, for example, science and technology. The moment that science realizes, okay, we're not alone, they're going to say, how did they get here? And science is going to say, okay, here are the equations. And then it's well, is that science going to be for the betterment of humanity? Or is it going to be for weapons? Is the argument, especially from some of the military people, going to be we need to defend ourselves and we need to spend more money on making weapons that can knock these things out of the sky because we need to defend ourselves? That's my fear of, I get this fear of the public itself going in a particular direction of fear. That's my concern. It's not the aliens, because I don't think people are going to see an alien for God knows how long. It's going to be the appropriation and internalization of the fact that we are not alone in the universe and that we are perpetually and persistently vulnerable to something that is hundreds of years potentially ahead of us. I just think us trying to accommodate that information is not going to be as smooth. I think it's going to be chaos.
I told you what I believe is going to happen. I didn't tell you how smooth it will be.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
That will be a matter of how people deal with this.
Yeah.
And there's 7 billion people on the planet, 7.4, I think. And so I assume that the spectrum of response to this is going to be very broad. But so what? Look, we're talking about history at a macroscopic level, right? It's here's an analogy. The government, because of, I don't know, some amateur astronomers figure it out. This has happened actually in a number of movies. It's a standard plot line. But the government is forced to reveal that there's a meteor coming at us that's about 2 miles across, and it's going to hit at 50,000 miles an hour, and it's going to cause a lot of problems, including the possibility of the end of all civilization. Okay. Now, I assure you that that's going to upset a lot of people, and you're going to have every manner of reaction to it. People are going to handle it in different ways, some better than others. It doesn't matter to the meteor. The meteor is going to hit.
Yeah.
Disclosure is going to happen.
Yeah.
How people handle it is on them.
Yeah.
Now,
how they handle it. Right.
To the extent that people know it's coming, to the extent that people have information, which is where the citizen science research journalism comes in, because we can go in front of the cameras and tell you there's an extraterrestrial presence. The regular people, the mainstream media, the governments can't do that. Not yet. So all I can say is this. whatever what whatever our hopes are about, or fears are about, what it's going to feel like or be like to live in a world where the entire the civilization understands with the same clarity that the Earth goes around the sun and the moon goes around the Earth, that there's ETs not only out there but engaging us already, right? However we're going to handle that, it's still the right thing to do.
Yes, agreed.
Because the ETs are here, and all we've got is smoke and mirrors. We can't even address it in a positive way.
Yeah.
And it's undermining trust in government, because the lie is no longer hidden. It's transparent. And so it's like your kid coming home every day and telling you something, and then looking at you and go, well, that wasn't the truth. And then the next day telling you something else and saying, man, that wasn't the truth either. After a while, the relationship between the parents and the kid has gotten pretty toxic. We cannot continue to lie to people that know we're lying. Right? That's another way of putting it. You can't do that very long, right? And so the truth embargo will end, and we'll handle it as best we can. There's 330 million people in this country, all right? The total number of registered Democrats, I think, is about 20% of that.
It's small, right?
Total number of Republicans is about 20% of that. The total number of hardcore conservatives that are constantly being discussed on the media in terms of their thinking about the recent politics may only be about 10% of the population of this country. And so this constantly referring to this group or that group to describe how 330 million people are going to deal with it. No, it's not accurate. It's misleading. Right? We do not know how the totality of the American people will deal with this, but I know this. If you tell people the truth, the idea that, oh, they're really going to act up because we told them the truth, so we better keep lying to them and they'll act better, that modality is gone.
Yeah.
We have enough evidence now to know across the board that the institutional systemic lying by governments under the national security aegis is virtually destroying the social contracts around the world. It's destroyed the social contract in China, in Russia, in the Soviet Union. It's destroying the social contract here in North Korea. Shall I go on, right? It's institutional lying destroys social contracts, and ultimately, if you push it long enough, will create failed states. And so any argument that, like, well, this group will be upset or that be upset is trumped. And I use that term deliberately.
No pun intended.
Trumped by the middle truth.
Yeah, or pun intended, I guess you could say. Last question. Internationally, what happens internationally as this pursues? I mean, there's been reports that China has been using artificial intelligence to track UFOs. There's been reports about Russia, Brazil, Argentina. All of these countries apparently have been studying this subject. So the question of why is it only the U.S.? It's not just us. What happens?
Only the U.S. that what? It's what?
Well, I'm saying it's not just us. It's all of these countries have been studying this stuff. Yeah. And so to end it, what happens internationally as this process proceeds? Do more countries, does information from China and Russia start to be released as this process kind of kicks off? What happens around the world internationally in a political sense as this starts to bubble up as legit?
By the way, this doesn't have to be the last question. I assure you, I'm not going anywhere. There's two fundamental international considerations. The first one is that our president is not the only head of state. There are other countries out there that have heads of state, and some of those heads of state can pretty much tell their people this anytime they want, and they don't have to have hearings, right? They just do it, and if it causes disruption, so what? They operate in a different context, and we're a constitutional republic. Technically, the Russia is a constitutional. Actually, it's a group of republics. But it does have a constitution of sorts, and of course, somewhat the same with China. The point is that Putin or Xi Jinping could announce it at any time, and that could happen. And if it does, it does. And it will not be good for us if, in fact, after all of the deception that the United States has gone through for 3/4 of a century, to have the truth finally hit the American people from another country is not going to make things better here. All right, it's going to be a problem, a real problem. But I should point out that if hearings are underway here, if we're on the way to disclosure, and it's happening and it's transparent, and one of those countries jumps in and snatches the trophy away from us, we're still much better off. So that's the first thing. We're not the only country that knows there's ETs here. Believe me, not by a long shot. We're not the only head of state that knows the ETs are here by a long shot. So that's the first consideration. Second consideration is that if the president does go first and confirms ET presence, and we enter the post-disclosure world, I'm going to be pretty adamant that other nations will follow very, very fast. I mean, they're going to race to the microphones, race to the media to confirm it to their people. Now, in other words, the United States gets the brass ring. We win the trophy, but these other nations can't afford to just sit back and go, I don't know. It's going to make them look like fools, make the heads of state look like fools. So they'll jump in. And when asked, well, wait a minute, why didn't you tell us first? They will say that they were following the United States' lead. Our allies will say they were following our lead. They felt it was the prerogative of the nation that defeated the Axis powers and spent trillions of dollars defending our nations, the West, against the nuclear threat of China and the Soviet Union. We couldn't do it. We were the only nation that could actually stand up to those nations. And so they owe us big time. I know we also rebuilt Europe and Japan. Should I go on? And so, yeah. Now, what Putin and Xi Jinping will say, I don't know. My guess is they'll say, yeah, it's true. What do you want to do about it? Right? It's true. Okay, great. And then the Russian, and then the citizens of all these other countries, though some countries it won't be a factor, but in a number of the developed nations, they will then start asking, okay, what more have you got? And each one of those nations will have the same tug of war that we're going to be having here. Our people, with the press totally behind us, will be wanting to know, what do you got? What do you got? What do you got? We want more to the U.S. government.
Not just that, wouldn't they also need a kind of world, almost like a United Nations? Because at this point, you're talking about exopolitics, like stuff
we
that's
have a
off
United
world.
Nations. Yeah,
Well, we do. But would there be something specific for this? I mean, because this feels different. Meaning anything that's like, you don't think so? Like,
no, it is different, and it is appropriate for a global organization like the United Nations to deal with it, except, of course, they're not going to allow that.
Yeah.
The United Nations is really not functioning well. It's not really much of a factor in this planet right now.
No, it's not.
It could have been, but we chose to go a different way. Now,
no, it's not, but that's my point. If we're dealing with stuff that's off-world, how does one country engage in something that's going to potentially affect the entire planet? You would think that you would need something that seems almost incentivized just by the process of that we're not alone proclamation. Like, that's Absolutely. What I mean when I say it seems like we're in a radically different space right now. And by the way, it's exciting, extremely exciting, especially for me, because I followed this issue for decades. Mm-hmm. And so it's like the moment that you say, okay, we're not alone, great. Something is visiting us, great. How did it get here? First question. On the second question, what's in the craft? Who's controlling the craft? Why are they here? But also this notion of, okay, how are we going to engage this? And it's going to be America engaging another planet?
Sure. That's all going to happen. That's all going to happen. And not right away, because, again, there's sort of a bit of a learning curve and a transition. But at some point, when people have gotten, a decent amount of information and real information, not bogus information, it will be raised, okay, what if open contact, which I believe is what happens after disclosure. I mean, that's going to be the next major development. How are we going to interact? And logically, some people will say, well, let's give the UN the position of dealing with ETs on behalf of all of the nations of the world. And a lot of people are going to raise their hand and say the UN isn't worth a plug nickel. It's a disaster. It's no longer functional.
Exactly.
And others will say, okay, I think you're right about that. We need to reform it. Let's restructure it. The UN is basically structured primarily for one reason: to act as a buffer to help prevent nuclear That's what
what it
it's about.
was. Yeah.
It's kind of like a show in a lot of ways. It occasionally does something, but the way it's structured with the Security Council, ultimately, any one of the nation's Security Council just veto it, stop it. So it doesn't. It's not properly set up. They say we'll reform it, but other people will say, look, the UN has had its day. Let's start from scratch. Let's create a new global organization, specifically and well funded and properly designed, so it reflects the globe in an appropriate way, to deal with and prepare to deal with what very well could be open contact. And I don't know which option is best. I really don't. But yeah, we will need, because I assure you, the ETs, whatever their intentions with us post-disclosure or post-open contact, they're not going to be.
Yeah. I'm going to talk to Russia. And then I'm going to talk to America. I mean, because ultimately you're going to end up with a war. Like any collaboration between, let's say, America versus something else off planet, that is going to. We're in a new space, and it's an exciting new space. I'll say it that way.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of if the ETs were to enter into open contact. By the way, there's already contact. There's a difference between open contact and covert contact. So that will come out post-disclosure.
Yeah.
That huge numbers of people have been engaged by these ETs on a covert way.
Right.
And that's going to be the most difficult, politically difficult, emotionally difficult thing for the world to learn and have confirmed. But as you know, that idea has been in play now since the late 1970s.
It's been a very long time.
So it's not a surprise. But so there are contact, which is another reason why open contact is inevitable once disclosure takes place. And so
Well, you were making the point about the this kind of world government and the way that it's not going to be dealing with one country versus another country.
Yeah. Here's the point. Yeah, right. So if the ETs enter into open contact and let it be known, look, we're clearly we're going to engage you, but we're just going to engage the United States for now. In other words, we're going to communicate with them, but not the rest of you.
All hell would break loose.
That would be a bad choice.
Yeah, that would be a disaster.
If I were the president, I would say, no. Hey, look, if we're not going to engage with you unless you're engaging with the whole planet as a whole.
That's my point.
That would be the right response.
Yeah.
Because if they, again, don't get me wrong. There's an infinite number of ways that a post-disclosure or a post-open contact world could get into serious trouble. There's a lot of ways things can get screwed up, I assure you. Okay, but so what? It's going to happen.
Oh, I'm not against it. Look, I've covered this issue for so long. I am so excited about the stuff coming out. It doesn't mean I don't have concerns, but excited. And it just looks like the world will be a radically different place. Like my grandmother, when she was born, there were no airplanes, there were no computers, there were no, jet engine. None of that stuff was there. And within the course of her life, all of that stuff came into being. It's radically different in comparison to what it was. Let's say, and I think this is another singularity of sorts for humanity that we're kind of in the womb of. Stephen, thank you for this, man. I really appreciate this. I always love the conversations with you on this stuff.
All right.
I get to geek out for like an hour on this subject, and I really am like when he gets into this notion of this stuff seemingly hitting the press, being taken with legitimacy and everything else. Yeah, it's exciting. And I guess the catch becomes what happens within the next couple of years, especially when COVID dies down. And this thing really, is the only thing or the main thing that is on the marquee. So, Stephen,
what is extraordinary things are about to happen. And the potential outcomes and developments simply cannot be fully described or known at this point. And that's uncomfortable for some people. I think the most important thing that needs to happen, regardless of what information comes forward, is that the citizens of the United States and the citizens of any other nation that is willing to allow their citizens, because some nations, it's not just up to the citizens, that hopefully the citizens of the majority of the world's nations will actually be able to participate in how we as a planet respond to the confirmation of the ET presence, as well as the knowledge about their activities and tech and everything else, which will require that governments of the world definitely respond in a number of ways and make a lot of choices and decide how to move forward, that the citizens will be a critical part of that, meaning that the worst thing that could happen is that this paradigm shift, whether it's in one country or all the countries, this paradigm shift of such great magnitude will be used by the typical, traditional, arrogant male leader as an excuse to say, okay, we have to remake the world. And this is a very big deal, and it has national security implications. And so we're going to do it. Keep out of our way, right? Don't give us any trouble. Keep your mouth shut. We don't need your input. The people that led you in the pre-disclosure world are going to shape the post-disclosure world, and you stay out of our way. That is what absolutely cannot happen. And so I believe the magnitude of this event, as well as the nature of technology and the nature of communications, are now at a point where the world's people, unlike anything remotely like it in the 10,000 years prior, have the tech and the ability to communicate and collectively act in ways never seen before. We have the ability to let our governments know, all 7 billion of us strong, here is what we want things to happen. These are the things we want to happen. This is how we want to deal in the post-disclosure world. These are the reforms that we want to see, et cetera, et cetera. And that will be one of the great political, not confrontations, but one of the most extraordinary political equations to be solved in the history of the human race. Namely, okay, here are all the governments. Here is 7 billion people with 7 billion computers and 6.2 billion smartphones and God knows how many podcasts, websites, the ability to communicate at will globally using Google Translation, so you can go to anybody's website, and here we are, and now we're going to deal with this together. Will that happen? That remains to be seen, right? But I intend to be on this side. I intend to be on this side when that happens, all right, and do what I can to help us reshape the world in a way that works for all of us instead of for a few privileged, arrogant people.
The voice that you guys are listening to, or we're listening to, is Stephen Bassett. He's the executive director of Paradigm Research Group, PRG, founded in 1996 to end the government-imposed embargo on the truth behind the extraterrestrial phenomena. You guys are listening to the Progressive Soapbox. I want to thank all of you for joining us, and I will see you guys bright and early in the morning. Thanks all. I'll talk to you guys later. Stephen,